Welcome to the show today. Today we have Nicolas Bürer on the show, who is the Managing Director of Digital Switzerland. Very excited to talk to you today, Nicolas. So tell us a little bit more about your story. So what's your personal and your entrepreneurial story that got you where you are today?
So hi, Daniel. First, nice to be there. My personal story, I have a good mix between, I studied physics at the EPFL, then I did 7-8 years in corporate, different positions in the finance market, and then in the consulting, management consulting, I learned a lot. And then after that, I changed to the startup world, to Dine Deal first as a head of sales and then head of sales and marketing. Then I went to Joyce as a managing director for Switzerland. At the same time, or a bit before, we founded Movu. I'm still the chairman of the company. And then since last year, I left Joyce to Digital Switzerland. And in general, so now I have almost 5 to 6 years experience within startups. I've seen a lot. I've seen what is failure. I failed, or we failed at Joyce, to be honest. So that's part of life, tough, but that's part of it. And with the Movu, we did an exit this year, a successful exit. So I've seen what it means to be successful. So I've seen both, and I think this is what I bring with in my new jobs at Digital Switzerland is on one side, the corporate experience I do have, and on the other side, the startup experience, the failure part and the successful part.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. So I'm curious about, so you started your career in corporate and then went into the startup world. And that was quite early on when startups or the startup ecosystem in Switzerland wasn't that thriving and vibrant like it is today. So I'm curious, like, what inspired you to move into that scene and eventually also, co-found and found the company that was then, very, very successful and go down that, I guess, hard track, because most people look at entrepreneurship and go like, that's the freedom part and the fun part and everything. And it is, but there's also a lot of challenges that come with being an entrepreneur. So I'm curious, like, what inspired you to move from corporate into entrepreneurship eventually?
So I think the major point is working for you, maybe, having the ambition to do something for you and not only work for the others. I really loved my job as a consultant, but at the end of the day, you work for your clients and only for your clients, And of course, you have everything is fine. You can be very successful, but somewhere you work a bit more for your clients. And I wanted to do something for my own with co-founders. Somewhere I had the impression I can fulfill a mission better than being at corporates. But I don't really like, to be honest, the differentiation corporates and startups, because at the end of the day, and if you look at the ecosystem, Switzerland or Silicon Valley is the best example. Both are working together and very successfully. So we need both. And I don't think we should say, I'm a startupper and I don't like corporates, or I'm a corporates guy and I don't care about startups. We should get rid of this kind of thinking. We need both, and we need SMEs also. And of course, the way of working is different, but we should really try to work together. And then when I see my job today is I have a mix between both, and I like it.
So I really like this take that you have on entrepreneurship. Like when I recap it correctly, the reason was basically leaving working for somebody else. The reason really was to build something bigger than yourself, something where you can be on a mission, something where you're not just doing a bit of consulting here and there, but you're building something that is bigger and can also live on even without you at some point. It's kind of like the sense that I get there. So that's a really interesting take. And also, maybe we can dive into this a little bit later into details about corporate and startup and this collaborative idea, because I'm very excited about this. We very much share the same perspective there on that topic. Now I'm curious about just your entrepreneurial journey again. So you mentioned 2 examples, one of them a failure, one of them a great success now in Switzerland. There's not too many successful exits in Switzerland. Hopefully there's going to be a lot more in the future. But I'm curious, like, on that journey, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced? Let's focus on the company where you had a successful exit with, because even though there was a successful exit, there was probably a lot of interesting things happening along the way. So what were some of the biggest challenges there?
Okay, very simple. If you look at a week, from Monday to Sunday, 7 days, you have only 1 day with good news. And you have 6 days with bad news, and challenges and issues and something new and whatever, and it's just, for me, the biggest challenge, and it's still always the biggest challenge at Movo now, is always being optimistic and look for solutions and get shit done. And it's tricky because it takes so much energy, because you have to take care of everything and you really have every day new issues. Or the revenue is not working anymore and you don't know why. You have to analyze. Or you have a key employee who is leaving, or you lose a key partner, and something you were not expecting. And the impact of such issues is, for a small early startup, is much bigger than if you work for a big corporate doing multi-billion revenue. So it takes so much energy to build a company and to overcome all these issues every day. And by the way, on my Facebook page, I have a picture of someone saying oh shit, oh yeah. And you have so many oh shit, oh shit again. And you only have maybe 8 times oh shit, and you have twice oh yeah, So that's the way it works. Daniel, I have to leave the room. Sorry, can we change?
No problem. Let's just make a cut and go on. So you were talking about some of the key challenges you faced along the way. Now, I'm also curious about the key lessons that you learned. What would you say maybe is one or maybe two, some of the key lessons along the way that you learned there on your journey?
Okay, 2 key lessons. Always think positive, always, and hire the right people are the 2 key elements, I would say. And if you don't have the right people, then change them very quickly.
Okay, is there some specific example? Is there some example along the way with hiring the right people, maybe not hiring the right people that you can give where you learned that lesson?
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe without giving names or whatever, but you see quite quickly after a couple of weeks or months if it works or not. And if not, you need to react quickly. You need to improve their skills. You need to give good feedbacks. I mean, otherwise you get troubles. It takes more energy, and that's not good. So I think in any cases, in many companies, you will leave that, and it's important to quickly react. Very important.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially as a young company where you can actually do react that quickly. It's good to make that also happen very, very quickly. So that's great. Thanks for sharing the journey a little bit. Now I'm curious about what you're involved in now. When did you join Digital Switzerland?
Was exactly 1 year ago, October 16th.
Okay. So let's talk about Digital Switzerland a little bit and what you're up to right now. So I know that you're juggling quite a handful of projects right now. What are some of the most exciting things you're currently working on as part of Digital Switzerland?
Okay, yeah, we have many projects, but at the end of the day, everything is organized through 5 pillars, and I really love all of them. The first one is about the political framework. We have to make sure our political frameworks enables innovation and digitization of the country. So I love this one, working with the federal administration, working very closely any after day of our federal councillors, Schneider-Hammann and so on. It's very exciting to see how things are going on in Bern. It's totally new for me. And I think we're on a good way all together to shape the future of Switzerland. On the political side. Then another one I really love is the entire startup ecosystem, of course. There are many players already, many things going on from many other partners. And I think on this one, we are behind Tel Aviv, we are behind Silicon Valley, but we are doing a lot. And I think in the next 2 to 5 years, many things will happen in the country. A third pillar I also like is the corporate enablement. So it's not only about startups, to have a prosperous economy and society. Of course, we want to have more startups, more innovation, but you need to help the SMEs and the corporates. Otherwise, they will get in trouble, and you have many people unemployed. So you need all of them doing fine. So on this one, on the corporate enablement part, it's important also to help all of these companies. The fourth pillar is about education and talent. This one is also very, very important. In Switzerland, we have a very strong education system. But still, what we're not doing well so far is primary schools, secondary school, you don't learn about computational thinking. We are working on it. And where we also have to improve a lot in Switzerland is long life learning. After 30 or 40, be careful. We are immigrants. Huh? We are not natives, so we have to make sure we understand everything, can use it, in our job or private life or whatever. And Schneider-Raman himself says, for the 50 plus, don't forget the 50 plus. I like this one. He's true. So, and the last pillar we are doing and working on it, Digital Switzerland, is about the population. When you work with politicians, then you're working on the education system. You're working to have a better, bigger startup ecosystem. You're working to help corporates. The last one, and last but not least, is the population. We need to take them with us in this journey. We don't want to have one of the strengths of Switzerland is we have of course we have classes, but we don't have huge differences. And we should keep it. We should have everyone going through the journey of digitization. Perfect. And we're working on the other 5 pillars. We are working on it with many projects. That's true.
Perfect. So that's 5 pillars, and then underneath of those 5 pillars, there's multiple projects. So there's quite a lot happening. I know some of the things you guys are doing. Kickstart Accelerator is one thing. I'm a mentor there as well. It's a very, very exciting program. What do you feel in those pillars right now? What are some of the most exciting projects within the pillars that you're currently working on? If you had to name 3, which ones would they be?
That's a tricky question. I will answer it, of course, but a tricky one. The first one is on the political side, the digital action plan, as we call it. I think it might be a game changer. If we make it to have the right regulations in the country, we might position it on the international scene, as a very attractive country. So this one might be a game changer. Another one is I like the digital day we're doing for the population. Also, because when you help the population, you show things you're doing to the politicians. So everything is connected at the end of the day. The digital day might be a flop. It's in a couple of weeks. Might be middle or might be a highlight. And we hope that's going to be a highlight. It might be pretty big. And if we do it for many years, it might be really something kind of party. In Israel, they are having a digital party. We should do the same. So this one is also a highlight. And the third one, I would say, I also like in the corporate enablement, we are working with a challenge. This is the name of the project. We're working with more than 90 corporates or organizations or academia or startups or experts. It's huge collaboration on many projects, and we want to implement collaborative projects. And I think this one, if we make it succeed in implementing some projects, it might be a game changer. The KSA, if I may, is also a very nice project, but we should not forget there are more than 500 accelerators in the world. So this one has some uniqueness, like there are not any other corporate with so many, not any other accelerator with so many corporates, which makes the KSA unique, but there are many other great accelerators also in Switzerland, in Zurich, in Lausanne, in Geneva. So we should not forget about this one. An accelerator won't be maybe a game changer. This is a way of making the situation better in the startup scene, but it's maybe not a game changer.
No, but it's more like an accelerator.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's perfect. So now, one question I have about this that I like to ask most people that I talk to. So you have those 5 pillars that you're working with. Of course, you have a team in the company, but how do you manage such a large portfolio of pillars and projects, and at the same time stay sane?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot about stakeholder management. So always thinking about who to contact for which topic, who to convince, who to change his opinion. I'm always joking about it, but soon I will write a book about stakeholder management, I think. First one. And second one is about efficiency and delegating, or empowering people better than delegating, so trying to have greatest people on board, trying to give them more responsibility. Because, I mean, you're right, we have 27 projects, so I don't have any chance to be involved in all of them. So many of them are just going through me on the side, and I don't see so much of them. So it's about having a great team again. It's all about people, having great people and empower them.
So that's a really interesting point, because there's sort of like two sides to that I see. First of all, the first one is having a great team, and the second one is actually enabling that team and not being the bottleneck. And that's what I'm really, every time I talk to him, I'm inspired how you are able to deal with that. I know that it's a lot that you work on, but at the same time, you're able to deal with it, which is very impressive. And when you talk about stakeholder management or stakeholder engagement, I think that's what you're really getting to. It's sort of like, instead of managing the projects, it's more about empowering the right people, either in your team, external, some kind of stakeholders that are, connected to the company, to empower them to take charge of certain things, so that it's not 27 projects hanging on your doorstep, basically.
You're right, no chance. Then I won't be there anymore. Now we have an executive committee with almost 15 people. We have a team with about 10 people, and they also need to work together on some projects, So I really like the word empowering. And by the way, when you grow so quickly as we did in the last 12 months, this is very nice, because we have a massive media coverage, and we have the impression slowly we are having impact. On the other side, on the internal side, because we're growing so well and just running, then we don't have the structure as we should have to. And when I'm working on it, like a startup, you have growth phase, and then sometimes you need a bit to consolidate and
Absolutely.
to get a clear organization and structure. If you only grow and grow and grow, you explode. So we're having the same in our case, and I think it's a lot about growing, consolidating, and we're doing the same. Of course, consolidation phase should not be for 12 months. It should be for a short time of period where we make sure everything is in place. And then we go to the next growing phase with new projects or new people or whatever.
Absolutely. And just like one last point on that, I'm very, very, I'm always impressed. You managed 27 large projects with a team of 10 people, the core team of 10 people, but because you're able to have those different groups of some are internal stakeholders, but they're not your employees, they're part of the team. So you're able to bring those external stakeholders into the conversation, like the committee you have, where you have some very, very interesting people on board there, and because of that, you're able to manage the entire organization, lead the entire organization in a very powerful way. With 10 people on board, there's not many others. There's really no others that I know who have that kind of impact with a team of 10 people. So I love that. Now, a part that I want to dig a little bit into more is government in Switzerland and digitalization, because that's a fun topic that you don't get to talk about every day. It's not very often that people put the word government and digitalization in the same sentence, especially not in Switzerland. So I'm really curious about this topic. Where do you sort of see the state of the art right now in that sense? And where do you see 5-10 years from today, if we keep going the route, the right track, if we keep going down the right road, where do you think we're going to be in terms of digitalization on a government and policy level?
Okay. So my opinion so far is, if you look at the parliament today, 200 people, Ständerat, Nationalrat, you have maybe 10 people who really knows a lot about digitization and innovation. They are entrepreneurs, so they are working in the area and they are pushing the topic. So it's not a lot, first point. If you look at the administration, or if you look at the federal councillor, what I've seen in the last couple of weeks or months, it's moving a lot. I was yesterday in Bern and they are doing strategy about cybersecurity. They are thinking about data centers. They are thinking about e-governments. So my opinion is in the last 2 years or 3 years maybe, it already changed huge. I mean, the mindset changed a lot. First point. The second point, if we continue like that on T-Space, there is, by the way, an advisory council of Schneider Ramon and Doris Leuthard, which is very encouraging. They started 2 or 3 months ago, and they have at the end of October the next meeting. It's a bit like Donald Trump has it in the US, so we have the same. And that's good, that's good. And with this one, we're working very close. And I believe if we keep the pace and the mindset and the interest, and maybe it's not interest, it's the sense of urgency. If we keep it, in 2 or 3 years, we'll be very far away. We also have some topics we believe if we change them soon, like the ICO regulations, we will be maybe the first country in the world doing that, the initial coins offering regulations. We want to be number one. We want to be a first mover, And we have some topics. We just have to make them like the e-identity because some other countries already have it. And we need it very urgently. And we have some other topics on the government side. If we're going to change it in the next 24 months, we might be number one. And it's a mammoth work. It's never-ending story. But if you work on it and very intensively, as you're trying to do, and with so many other people, again, Digital Switzerland, we only a small piece in this puzzle. But if we continue like that, I'm sure in a couple of years, we might be very far away in terms of regulatory frameworks and governments for digitization and innovation.
So I'm really curious about a piece there. So it's, I always see this and hear this everywhere. Like, Switzerland is one of the most, or maybe the most innovative country in the world, 7 times in a row. So we have all these sort of like titles out there. I'm really interested in how does it ripple? Like when you say, okay, in 2 or 3 years, we're going to be really far ahead. We may be number one in certain things. How is that going to ripple into the business world? So what is it going to do for startups? What it's going to do for big companies, for SMEs, for professionals? What's sort of your sense of impact there?
Okay, that's a good question, by the way. About the innovation one, yes, number one, but you'll have to look at the criteria. It's a lot about patents, and that's true. If you look at the ABB, Novartis, and Roche, and whatever, we are number one if compared to the population. That's correct. Where we're not good at, it's about making business out of them. Of course, these big companies, they make huge business, but making all the business, making startups and unicorns, for example, we are not good at that. We are improving a lot, but we don't have so many unicorns. We don't have so many successful startups doing IPOs. I don't know. What is the last one? I don't know, Leontech or Avalok. They are great of them. There are so many of them, but we need 10 times such companies, And we need that ecosystem. An ecosystem means you get at a point of time some great startups. They make it huge. They make an IPO, whatever. They sell it and they reinvest. And they are accessible for the new startups. They reinvest their money, and the investors they reinvest their money. Then you have an ecosystem. And then the corporates work with the startups and. It's all about the same people. In Silicon Valley, I don't know, there are maybe 1,000 people. They are the leaders. And they're all working together. And we should get the same. And on this one, about the startup ecosystem, it takes time. The same in Israel, fantastic. They started 15 years ago. Let's say we started maybe 5 years ago. So we still have a long way, but we need to go to the ecosystem.
So this is a really interesting perspective. So it's kind of like, the enablement on a government and policy level is going to allow the ecosystem to thrive in a much bigger way, and it's going to it's going to be an enabler for better collaborations between the different groups, between investors, corporates, startups, and it's also going to it's going to enable the ecosystem to be more vibrant because it's going to be more friendly, I guess.
Okay, to get back to your questions, that's correct. What do we need from the government? We need law regulations. We need to enable digitization. We need to enable blockchain. We need to enable cybersecurity. We need to push cybersecurity. We want to be a cyber hub in the world. We want to be a data center hub in the world. And we need to make sure we are not over-regulated on this one, of course. On the other one, we need some better conditions for investors and for startups on the tax situation. This one is not easy to position because there are some other interests, of course. But it's all about comparing our situation with some other countries. And if you look at other countries, they have some better conditions. So tricky to get especially international startups to the country if your tax situation is not attractive. Another one is also about the third contingency. People from outside of Europe, there are so many great talents outside of Europe. We want more of them in Switzerland. You don't find the talents here because all the talented people, they had a job. So we need some foreign talented people. They will create new jobs, you know. And on this one also, it's quite tricky because without going deeper in the politics, there are some other interests, protecting people, etc. And I don't believe when you take a foreigner here in the country, you take the job of a Swiss. I think there is a job and you don't find a Swiss. That's a pity. So on this one, we have to work a lot. And that's the conditions, you know, low regulations, better conditions for tax, better conditions for talents from abroad. And if we make all of them, we have a very attractive hub in the next years.
Yeah, I totally love that. You know, integrating all these aspects into government and policy that will enable the whole ecosystem to thrive in a much bigger way. So this is perfect. Now, one of the last questions I want to ask you is a little bit about access. So I'm always asking my guests, like, what would be the one thing if you had access to it would accelerate the growth of the company, the initiatives, the projects, and everything you do and everything you're involved in much faster, easier, better, more effortless. So what would that be if you could just wave a magic wand and say, if I had access to this one or maybe two things, it would just make everything so much easier?
I have to go back to politics. If I would find a way to convince all the politicians, because if you look at this one, the regulatory framework is the basis of everything. You know, it's like infrastructure and education and the regulatory framework. It's a kind of, if you look at the pyramid, you know, we're on the basis. And if it doesn't work, the pyramid will not be built. So on this one, the way to convince the different politician parties, you know, because they have so many different interests and they don't understand innovation is key for the future of the country, you know. And if I will find a solution on this one, and not I, but all believing, you know, in innovation and in the future, if we will find a way of being able to convince all politicians quickly to move quicker forward, will be wonderful. I don't have it yet. It's hard work.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is a mindset change in politics that is going from, you know, very much a bit of an outdated value system to a, you know, more modern way of thinking about things and modern mindset when it comes to innovation, digitalization. So, you know, that's a very interesting point because maybe there's people out there in politics, maybe there's people out there with a lot of influence in politics that hear this. So that's a really good message. Thank you for sharing that today. So last question, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Digital Switzerland, what's the best place to go for those things?
They should either go to Kraftwerk, Zurich. They will find the home of Digital Switzerland. We share with Impact Hub and Migros Engagement and EWZ. This is one place we can be. The other one is at Blue Lions, a co-working space, by the way. Pretty close from Impact Hub at Silke, or they should go to the EPFL. We have our Romandy team at the EPFL, and otherwise they should go on the digital way. So
digitalswitzerland.com, digitalswitzerland.com, LinkedIn, sort of like those two ways. So we're gonna link to them below, so people can, you know, connect, learn more, share more and engage more. So thank you so much for being on the show, for sharing your great insights and especially also your politics perspective on Switzerland when it comes to digitalization. Really powerful point. So thank you so much, Nicolas.
Thank you, Daniel. It was a pleasure.